My wife had been bedridden for 3 years. To pay for her treatment, I worked 3 jobs a day, exhausting myself to the bone. Until one day, I received an order for a delivery of skis and accidentally stumbled upon my wife teaching her first love how to ski. That's when I realized that there was nothing wrong with her legs. There was not a hint of embarrassment on her face for deceiving me, as she acted unfazed by the situation. Congratulations, you've passed the test. 3 years is enough to prove that you're not a materialistic man. But Emma, I really hate liars. After delivering the last order under the scorching sun, my delivery uniform was soaked with sweat. Yet, I couldn't stop to take a sip of water because another customer's order popped up. The customer tipped $1,000 for this order. Once I complete it, I'll be able to save enough money to afford the most renowned neurologist in the country for my girlfriend. I felt elated as I hopped on my scooter, humming a tune while delivering the snowboard to the ski resort. It was a weekday, so there weren't many people at the ski resort, making it easy to find customers. The person who placed the order was a tall and handsome man. He took the ski board and waved to the woman behind him. "Emma, come over and teach me how to ski." Hearing that familiar name, I was taken aback. My girlfriend is also named Emma. Following the customer's gaze, the smile on my face instantly froze. The wife, who was originally bedridden, is now confidently walking towards us in a beautiful ski outfit. At that moment, I recognized that the man in front of me is her first love, Mike. I was completely stunned and frozen in place. Since I was wearing a mask, Emma didn't recognize me. Mike, impatient with how slowly Emma was walking, stepped forward and embraced her. "Are you walking so slowly because you don't want to teach me? Or are you afraid your boyfriend will find out?" Emma didn't push her away, instead, she showed a look of disdain. "Do you think I would be afraid of him? That loser is probably somewhere delivering takeout right now." Hearing the disdain in Emma's words, Mike snickered. TSK, I almost feel sorry for him." "Emma, you're really ruthless. But I like it. I didn't make him deliver takeout to support me." Emma walked into the ski resort with Mike's hand in hers. My vision blurred, and a sharp pain twisted in my lower abdomen. 3 years ago, Emma was paralyzed in a car accident. The doctors said she needed medication to survive, costing 20,000 yuan each month. To pay for Emma's treatment, I accrued a debt of 500,000 yuan, so I work 3 jobs every day and can only sleep 5 hours a night. So what happened? She was actually pretending to be limping to deceive me. I didn't leave, instead, I quietly followed them from behind. Watching Emma patiently teach Mike how to ski on the slope, I could only laugh at myself. Even though he couldn't stay upright, he ended up pulling Emma down with him, both of them falling clumsily into the snow. Emma was still not angry, she laughed heartily in his arms, her eyes crescent-shaped. Ever since Emma injured her leg, her mood has been unpredictable. She would often flip over freshly prepared meals with one hand, and losing her temper at me had become a daily occurrence. I thought she was just feeling down, but looking back now, I realized she simply didn't want to see me. However, I still wasn't willing to give up, so I decided to call Emma. The phone rang, and Emma took out her phone, seeing that it was a call from me. An obvious impatience flashed across her face. "Hello, why are you calling me if you're not delivering takeout?" I held the phone, my voice dry as I said, "Why don't you look up at the direction above you?" Emma, puzzled, looked up and met my gaze, momentarily taken aback. She seemed a bit embarrassed at first, but quickly regained her composure. "John, you actually followed me?" Her blatant disdain pierced my heart. I wanted to ask, if you were so disgusted by me, why did you agree to be with me in the first place? I let out a wry smile and said, "Emma, don't you think you should explain to me about your leg?" Next to him, Mike rolled his eyes. "John, you misunderstood. It was Emma who said she was too bored at home, so I brought her to the ski resort. Don't blame her, her leg is definitely fine. She wanted to surprise you, that's why she didn't tell you." Emma unhappily scolded Mike, "Why would you lie to him? I'm telling you the truth, my leg has never been paralyzed. This is all just a test for you." "Was it really a test?" I chuckled bitterly. "Do you have any idea what I've done for you over the past 3 years? During these 3 years, I traveled to various hospitals desperately trying to heal her leg. To sell a few more bottles of wine, I drank with customers until I had stomach bleeding, which landed me in the hospital. When I woke up, I received a call from the doctor urging me to pay the medical bills. I couldn't afford to spend even a single extra penny, so I endured the excruciating pain and discharged myself. I was afraid that John would worry, so I could only go to a friend's place to rest. Seeing me lying on the sofa in pain, my friends couldn't help but ask with concern, "Is it worth it?" I didn't tell my friends the truth. Even though life is tough and there seems to be no end in sight, I am very happy. Because this home has Emma. I have always believed that after the storm, there will surely come a day to see the rainbow. However, reality is often more cruel than our ideals. My voice was quite loud, and other customers at the ski resort frequently glanced our way. Some even whispered among themselves. Emma, unable to maintain her composure, shouted at me in irritation. "Is there something you can't talk about when you get home? Isn't it embarrassing? Go deliver your takeaway." After Emma and Mike left, I called a friend to arrange a drink. It would be a lie to say I'm not feeling down. Before marrying Emma, I felt like my life had become a story come to life. Her family was well off, her parents were in business, running a company and living comfortably. On the other hand, I was just an orphan, abandoned by my parents and raised in an orphanage. I was fearful that Emma would suffer alongside me, so I wanted to give her all the good things I had. Little did I know, she didn't need any of that at all. That night, my friends and I got completely drunk, and I found myself sobbing on the street while hugging a friend. Honestly, I've only cried for Emma in my entire life. From now on, I'll live only for myself. Drunk and awake from the dream, life still had to go on. That night, I didn't go to work, I went straight home. Emma hasn't returned yet. She knows that I get home from my night shift around 3 in the morning. She calculated the time so well that I've never suspected anything. Feeling unwell and unable to eat dinner, I sat quietly in the living room waiting for Emma. When the hour hand pointed to 2 in the morning, I heard the sound of a key turning in the lock outside the door. The room was pitch black without the lights on. It wasn't until Emma turned on the wall sconce that I saw she had brought Mike back with her. At that moment, Mike had his arm wrapped around her shoulder closely. "What did you bring him back for?" I asked angrily. "This house is where I plan to live with Emma after we get married. I personally selected all the decorations and furniture inside, so how can she bring another man back?" Emma glanced at me suspiciously, threw her skiing equipment on the floor, and said with a serious face, "John, have you lost your mind? Can't you see he hurt his foot? Then you can take him to the hospital." "Why does it have to be at home?" Emma frowned. "The injury isn't serious, he doesn't need to go to the hospital. Isn't it normal to bring a friend home when they're hurt?" Seeing that Emma and I were about to argue, Mike released his hold on Emma's shoulder. "It's fine, Emma. Don't fight with John. I can just stay at a hotel. Anyway, I'm a big guy, I'll be fine." With that, Mike planned to hop away on one foot. Emma grabbed me back. "What if you get hurt while you're alone? Who will take care of you? You're staying home today, and I'll see what he dares to say." Hearing her determined tone felt like a splash of cold water on me. "You extinguished all my enthusiasm," I said with disappointment. "Emma, this is my home. What right do you have to bring him back here? Has your conscience been eaten by a dog? Can't you see anything of the kindness I've shown you?" A hint of disdain flashed in Emma's eyes. She looked at me not as a girlfriend but like someone observing a stray dog without a home. She feels sorry for me, gives me charity, but she doesn't love me. I understand, you just want money, right? You've indeed had a tough time looking after me these 3 years, and I won't treat you unfairly. Saying this, Emma took out a debit card and shoved it into my hand. Why does Emma think that after she deceived me, I would still be willing to forgive her? I was so angry that my whole body trembled. I tore the debit card in half and threw it at Emma's face. "Take your filthy money, I don't want it. Get lost, just get out of here." Emma was shocked and angry. "John, don't push it. You should be grateful that I'm even with you. What right do you have to be angry at me? If only you had relentlessly pursued me back then, seeing how pitiful I was, I might have reluctantly agreed to be with you." It turns out that my pursuit of her at that time had made her so disgusted. The woman before me still had a familiar face, yet I felt as if I no longer recognized her. I sighed and shook my head in disappointment. "Emma, let's break up." Emma couldn't believe that I was the one who proposed breaking up. A look of annoyance crossed her face. She coldly said, "John, you actually want to break up with me? You're poor and incompetent, who else would look at you besides me?" Strangely enough, despite Emma's clear disdain for me, she was unwilling to break up. But I no longer want to be tangled up with her. Because John, who deeply loved Emma, died last night. I won't take what others don't want, nor will I want a fickle woman. Emma, don't regret it. I didn't tell Emma that I took out a loan of $200,000 to pay for her treatment. I have to repay that money. I took a part-time job at a nightclub again, as there's no place that pays better than here. To my surprise, a wealthy woman specifically requested me to serve her. Just be with me and name your price, she said. As soon as I entered the private room, I was forcefully pulled into the embrace of a 180-pound wealthy woman. Her body pressing against mine made it hard for me to breathe. I wasn't desperate enough to sell myself for money, so I endured the discomfort and faked a smile. Jane, I'm just a part-timer. How about I introduce you to someone else? As soon as Jane heard that I wasn't interested, her expression changed instantly. She splashed a drink in my face and then threw the cup away. You're a male model now? What's with the attitude? It's your privilege that I even consider you. The cup exploded around me, and some sharp fragments cut my face. My cheek throbbed painfully, but for the sake of the money, I endured it and spoke softly, Sister Jane, please don't be angry. I'm tough, so you won't hurt your hand by hitting me. However, my meekness didn't soothe Sister Jane, instead, it only made her more furious. She kicked me away, causing the wine bottle on the table to crash to the ground. I fell messily among the scattered fragments, feeling a sharp pain that made me gasp. What the hell? If you don't want to be here, then just leave. Jane glared at me with a fierce expression, her eyes filled with a lot of excess flesh. Just as I was getting up from the ground, I heard a familiar voice not far away. Who made Sister Jane angry? I looked up and saw Emma, with Mike behind her. When Jane saw Emma, she kicked me hard in the stomach and said, this idiot has no sense at all. Boss Emma, next time you need to keep your eyes open, people like this shouldn't be let out. Hearing the title of boss referring to Emma left me stunned. I never imagined that Emma was actually the owner of a nightclub. She had kept this from me so well. She knew everything, silently watching me struggle for her medical expenses, enduring all the humiliation for a bit of money. She must feel quite accomplished about it. I couldn't help but let out a sarcastic smile, but we have already broken up, so it doesn't matter to me anymore. Emma smiled and promised to cover Jane's expenses for the night, which eased Jane's expression a bit. Jane shot me an unfriendly glance. I'll let this idiot off the hook for Emma's sake. But he owes me an apology. He laid hands on me and caused me to get hurt. How could I possibly apologize to her? Emma said coldly to me. John, kneel down and apologize to Jane. I clenched my fists and looked up, staring at Emma intently. In front of everyone, she ruthlessly trampled my dignity into the mud, allowing it to be crushed. I can even vaguely feel the mocking gazes directed at me, as if they are looking down on me. Mike, standing next to her, is smugly staring at me, his eyes filled with amusement at my expense. I will not give these people the satisfaction they desire. I won't apologize. Seeing my stubborn expression, Emma crossed her arms and sneered, all right, if you won't apologize, then I'll terminate your contract right here tonight. Can you afford a penalty of $1 million? Emma always knew my weakness, and she was well aware of the most effective ways to threaten me. I opened my mouth weakly, my throat feeling as if it was stuck with a stone. Yes, if I took on this debt, my life would be bleak and devoid of hope. Yet even so, I was unwilling to back down and admit my mistake to her. Just as I was at a stalemate with everyone, Mike kicked my leg. I knelt in front of Sister Jane without any defenses. Sister Jane smiled triumphantly and said, all right, since it's for Boss Emma's sake, you can hurry and get lost. I felt completely humiliated. My nose tinged with bitterness, and I barely held back my tears. I left the private room in embarrassment but didn't actually go far. Instead, I waited for Emma in the hallway. Before long, Emma came out. What's up? Have you calmed down and decided not to be angry with me anymore? John, who else would be interested in you besides me? As long as you admit your mistakes and sign the prenuptial agreement, I will agree to marry you. This way, you won't have to pay me back for the money you owe or the penalty, I've taken care of it for you. Emma's tone was condescending, her expression radiating an I am indispensable to you attitude that reminded me of our first encounter. In the library at school, she had been sitting quietly by the window, sunlight streaming down on her, creating an almost sacred space that seemed untouchable. The moment our eyes met, she flashed me a sweet smile, and I felt as if Cupid had struck me right in the heart. But now, time is truly a terrifying thing, it can transform the person you once cherished into someone unrecognizable. I shook my head with a smile. Emma, I've already broken up with you. I'm waiting to tell you that I'm no longer working as a male model. If you want to sue me, go ahead. Emma looked at me in disbelief, shaking her head with a smile. John, that's $1 million. You'd probably never earn that much money in your entire life. You need to think carefully. If you break up with me and then come back, I will definitely not take you back. What is there to think about? I said firmly. Don't worry, I will never come looking for you either. Hearing my resolute words, the smile on Emma's face froze. She became furious. John, do you know what you're saying? You keep saying you love me, and this is how you treat me. Do you have any idea how many people want to be with me? I don't know what Emma hopes to achieve by saying all this to me. I no longer love her. I wonder if my decision to break up is what made Emma feel embarrassed. She rushed over and slapped me several times. How dare you break up with me? As if the slaps weren't enough, she stomped hard on my toes with her high heels. The pain in my foot was excruciating, but I endured it without retaliating. I considered this my final act of compassion towards her. Suddenly, a clear female voice echoed from a distance. Emma, stop it. How could you hit someone? I snapped back to reality, realizing it was my college classmate, Sarah. Emma paused for a moment, as if she understood something, and then exclaimed, so that's why you broke up with me, you're with Sarah now. After saying that, she turned to Sarah with a mocking tone. Sarah, you were like a dog clinging to John in college. Why are you so eager to pick up the trash I just discarded? During college, Sarah pursued me for a while. However, at that time, I was completely infatuated with Emma and rejected Sarah's advances. Later, while working the night shift, I encountered Sarah twice. She reserved 2 large cases of drinks under my name just to help me make a little more money. When I saw Emma insulting Sarah with various harsh words, I instinctively pulled Sarah behind me and said, Emma, if you're angry, take it out on me, but don't make things difficult for an innocent person. Emma was furious and exclaimed, oh, so you're protecting another woman right in front of me. The more she spoke, the angrier she became, and she lunged at Sarah. I quickly grabbed her wrist and forcefully pushed her back. Are you crazy, Emma? I told you we broke up. I can't believe Emma has gone this crazy. Where did her previous kindness go? I must have been blind to fall for someone like her, and even to be burdened with her debts. Emma's chest heaved with anger as she gritted her teeth and said, fine, if you want to break up, you can. But unless you pay the penalty, you can forget about ending this relationship. Sarah couldn't take it anymore. She pointed at Emma's nose and shouted, you clearly have money, yet you just watch John leave for work early and come back late without doing anything. Emma, don't you think you're being a bit excessive? Emma dismissed her concern, saying, who are you to tell me what to do? John is willing to make sacrifices for me. Who do you think you are to give me orders? Seeing Sarah trembling with anger, I wanted to tell her not to get into a confrontation with her. But then Sarah pulled out a black card from her bag. Fine, I'll give you 1 million, but from now on, you must stop bothering John. Not only Emma, but even I was stunned. Sarah, this is my business, you don't need to. Before I could finish my sentence, Sarah pulled her hand away from me and firmly addressed Emma, you need to write up the agreement right now. John is to be released, and you cannot interfere with him anymore. Emma, though reluctant, knew she had to comply with her own words. After receiving the payment, she quickly drafted an agreement. Once Sarah had me sign and fingerprinted, she continued, now that this matter is settled, we should talk about you and John. I forgot to tell you, I have already called the police. The police arrived quickly. Sarah explained everything clearly and even mentioned that Emma had pretended to be disabled to deceive me. Upon hearing this, Emma panicked and hurriedly explained, don't listen to her nonsense, my leg was injured before, and it was John who voluntarily offered to support me. Seeing that I remained silent, Emma, feeling anxious, shouted at me. John, say something. After what happened before, I had already given up on Emma. There was no way I would say a word for her. I nodded to the police, indicating that this matter was true. Then all of us were taken back to the police station to give our statements. As soon as I got into the police car, I heard Emma's angry voice coming from the next vehicle. I pretended not to hear her. After a thorough investigation by the police, they informed me that Emma's extortion claim was unfounded because she had chat evidence, and I had voluntarily stated that I was willing to support her financially. This outcome was within my expectations. However, Sarah insisted that Emma had intentionally hit her. The police suggested Emma resolve the matter privately, or she would face detention for 5 to 10 days. Emma didn't want to be detained and was willing to settle for 100,000 yuan. I initially hesitated, but it was Sarah who encouraged me. If you can take her money, why not? Besides, it's not easy for you right now, any income helps. John, your pride isn't worth that much. Sarah's words were like a wake-up call for me. Yes. If we are struggling to meet our basic needs, then maintaining appearances is not that important. I accepted Emma's money, and after leaving the police station, I blocked all her contact information and WeChat, as if I had never known her or loved her. Seeing that it was already 8 p.m., I treated Sarah to hot pot. Sarah, thank you for today. I will pay you back the 1 million later. Sarah lowered her eyes and let out a dry laugh. I'm not in a hurry, you know, John. I've liked you for a long time. Of course. I'm not trying to take advantage of anyone, I just want you to give me a chance. I'm not asking you to agree right now, I can wait for you. I didn't respond to Sarah. Having just ended a relationship, I have neither the energy nor the time to quickly dive into another one. Over the past 3 years of taking care of Emma, I have poured all my effort into it. How nice it would have been if I had fallen in love with Sarah from the start. Perhaps my life wouldn't have been so challenging. Unfortunately, one can never start over. It's not too late, though. When I got home, I finally treated myself to a long, restful sleep and witnessed the rising sun. I threw all of Emma's belongings into the trash bin, her clothes and several expensive handbags that I had given her. I remember one in particular, which I had worked hard for 2 months to buy, resisting the urge to spend a single penny on her. Looking back now, it's almost laughable. I cleared out everything in the house, completely erasing any traces of Emma's life, and then listed the property for sale on second-hand housing platforms. This apartment can sell for around 2 million, which would allow me to pay back Sarah and still have half left. This way, I wouldn't have to struggle so much. However, I didn't expect that the very next day, someone would be willing to buy the apartment. I arranged a time for the buyer to come over, but to my surprise, it turned out to be Sarah. She smiled. John, instead of selling it to someone else, why not sell it to me? Besides, this house has a great location and good lighting. I know Sarah doesn't want to put me in a difficult position. After all, if she doesn't want money, it would just make it harder for me. I sold the house to Sarah, and then immediately transferred the money to her. I rented an apartment in the city center, and after that, Sarah often invited me over for dinner. As time went on, we became more familiar with each other. That day happened to be the Mid-Autumn Festival, and Sarah invited me over for a meal. As soon as I arrived at her house, I noticed a WeChat notification indicating that someone had added me as a friend. I assumed it was a colleague, but when I checked her moments, I realized it was Emma. Her moments showcased recent photos, all featuring her and Mike together in very intimate poses. I wasn't sure if she intended for me to see this, but it was clear that she had misjudged my feelings. I no longer had any emotions for her. I initially planned to delete Emma's WeChat, but Sarah suddenly called me for help. After thinking it over, I decided to wait before deleting it. When I didn't reply, Emma sent another message. John, I'm downstairs. Can we meet? I didn't see that message. When I heard a knock at the door and went to open it, I was surprised to find Emma standing outside. I rushed to close the door as soon as I saw her, but Emma, having finally caught a glimpse of me, pushed back with both hands. However, her hands ended up getting caught in the door, leaving a large red mark. John, how could you bear to hurt me? Emma's pitiful appearance didn't evoke any sympathy from me. I frowned and said, just go. I don't want to see you. Emma was stunned into silence. She never expected me to be so indifferent and heartless towards her. In the past, I held her in the palm of my hand, fearful that she might suffer even the slightest grievance, but now. Hearing the noise, Sarah came out of the kitchen. Upon seeing Emma standing outside, the spoon in her hand fell to the floor. Emma clearly didn't expect to see Sarah here either, and she shouted at her. Sarah, what are you doing here? Emma had no idea that I had sold the house to Sarah. But it was clear that she misunderstood the situation. I didn't bother to explain. When I saw Emma trying to go inside, I quickly pulled her back. What are you doing? This house now belongs to Sarah. Emma angrily shook off my hand. Really, John? Are you seeing her behind my back? You clearly said you only loved me. I pushed Emma out the door. I really think you should see a psychologist, Emma. We've been broken up for a long time, and you're with Mike now. Please go find him. As soon as Emma heard me mention Mike's name, she suddenly tilted her head back and smiled at me. Are you jealous? I was just doing it on purpose for you to see. I never really liked Mike. I'm sorry, I was wrong. The things I did before were unfair, and I shouldn't have tested your sincerity like that. Will you forgive me? I quietly watched Emma. She would never understand the pain of having one's heart trampled upon. Nor would she grasp the feeling of loss that comes from betrayal by a loved one. I shook my head and said, "Emma, you should go. We can never be together." The smile faded from Emma's face, and she looked at me in confusion. "John, you clearly said you would love me for a lifetime. Are you really going to treat me like this just because I made this small mistake? Small matter? Well then, if that's the case, how about this? You start delivering takeout at 6 in the morning and work until 10 at night, then go to the nightclub to work until 3 in the morning before you can come home. Do that for 3 years, and I'll forgive you. How does that sound?" My words clearly had an impact on Emma. Her gaze trembled, and she took a step back. In that moment, I swiftly closed the door, and outside, Emma began to pound on it in a frenzy. She shouted in a tone of defiance, "Sarah, John, I will make sure you won't have it easy." I don't know how long it took, but eventually the banging on the door stopped. After Emma's outburst, the festive atmosphere was completely gone. Sarah remained silent, the table was filled with steaming dishes, but neither of us picked up our chopsticks. I looked at Sarah's delicate face and suddenly took her hand. "Sarah, let's be together." During this time, I couldn't deny the feelings I had. Sarah treated me so well. She invited me to her house for dinner every day, asked me to go hiking with her, and suggested watching movies together. I knew she was trying to help me find my way out of the darkness in her own way. I wasn't an unfeeling stone. No matter how hardened my heart was, I couldn't help but be touched by her kindness and thoughtfulness. Sarah was so moved that she burst into tears of joy. She kept repeating, "I do." I thought to myself that I could never meet anyone who would treat me better than Sarah. She didn't hold my past against me. Whenever I wanted to share it with her, she would always say, "I love you for who you are, not for your past." Yes. If you like someone, how could you care about their past? After I got together with Sarah, I posted a message on social media. Old friends and family congratulated me. I had actually deleted Emma from my friend list, but somehow she found out about it and sent me a message, "John, you will regret this." I didn't take this matter to heart. I just didn't expect Emma to do something like this, finding someone to hurt Sarah. That day, I had to work overtime unexpectedly, and after messaging Sarah, I told her not to wait for me to have dinner. To my surprise, she insisted on going to buy hairy crabs for me, saying that I could eat them when I got back. I knew Sarah couldn't sit still, so I didn't think much of it. After a while, I received a call from Sarah. Her voice was trembling heavily. "John, there are a few people following me, I'm really scared." Noticing that Sarah was in danger, I didn't care about working overtime anymore. After Sarah sent me her location, I quickly drove home, while calling the police on the way. When I arrived, I saw 4 men trying to grab hold of Sarah. However, standing next to her taking photos was Emma. "You bitch, wait until I slash your face, and then let's see how you attract John." With that, Emma pulled out a knife. Seeing this, I rushed over and, using brute force, pushed the 4 of them aside. "Get away!" I saw Sarah doubled over in pain, clutching her stomach on the ground, her face pale and her lips devoid of color. "John, my stomach hurt so much." When I touched her, my hand came away covered in blood. Seeing Sarah in such agony made my anger and rage boil over. I grabbed Emma by her hair and slapped her dozens of times. "If you have a problem with me, then take it out on me. Why did you have to hurt Sarah, hurt my child?" Emma was bruised and battered, with 2 of her teeth missing. The people she brought with her, upon seeing her beaten, pulled out their knives. At that moment, my vision was clouded with rage, and I had lost my sanity, only thinking about how to take revenge for Sarah. I charged at those people. My arm was slashed several times, blood flowing freely, but I felt no pain. I seized the knife from one of the assailants and plunged it into his abdomen. By the time the police sirens blared, all 5 men were writhing in pain on the ground. I, too, had sustained several cuts and suddenly felt weak, losing consciousness. When I woke up again, I found myself in a hospital. Sarah was sitting beside me, her face pale. Upon seeing me awake, she was brought to tears and pressed the call button for the doctor to come. The doctor examined me and assured me that I wasn't seriously injured, I only had some deep wounds that required a period of rest to heal. "I'm fine, don't worry about me. How about you? Does it still hurt anywhere?" When I asked Sarah about her injury, she suddenly broke down in tears. "I'm sorry, John, I lost the baby." I felt a pang of sorrow and wrapped my arms around Sarah, gently comforting her. "It's okay, we're still young, and we'll have children in the future." After Emma was arrested, she was expected to receive a lengthy prison sentence. However, she was diagnosed with a mental illness. The police suggested that my breakup with her had caused significant emotional distress, triggering the onset of her underlying mental illness. In our country, individuals with mental illnesses do not serve prison sentences. Instead, they are sent to psychiatric hospitals for treatment. Meanwhile, my actions were deemed a legitimate act of self-defense, and I faced no criminal charges. What I didn't expect was that the 4 people Emma brought over were actually arranged by Mike. As a result, he was also sentenced to 5 years in prison. After losing a child with Sarah, I naturally couldn't let Emma have a comfortable stay in the psychiatric hospital. I bribed the head nurse to teach Emma a lesson from time to time. However, as soon as I arrived at the psychiatric hospital where Emma was being held, I saw an ambulance parked at the entrance. 2 male nurses were carrying a stretcher on which Emma lay. Her legs were limp and soft like sponge. From a nearby nurse, I learned the truth. It turned out that on the day Emma was admitted to the psychiatric hospital, she forgot to take her medication, and her condition relapsed. As a result, she ran over to beat up a patient in the next room. However, the patient next door had some previous experience in combat sports and quickly knocked Emma to the ground. Fearing further attacks, Emma jumped from the 2nd floor of the psychiatric ward. As a result, she severely injured her leg, leaving her disabled. It can only be said that what goes around comes around, and good or evil will be repaid in kind. I shared this with Sarah, and she reflected on it, saying it was all her own doing. 6 months later, Sarah and I got married in Bali. Not long after that, Sarah gave birth to a son. As I looked up at the sunny sky, I realized that perhaps my wonderful life was just beginning.